Hey everybody, in today's video, we are going to be doing a fermentation. We're going to be fermenting purple sauerkraut. It's a purple kraut. It actually came from a book that I have used a couple times, and it is The Herbalist's Kitchen. It's a book by Brittany Wood Nickerson, and I have done this recipe before, and I thought I would show you how we're going to be preserving the purple cabbage. Now, I have been doing a lot of dehydrating videos lately, which I realize because it is my go-to preservation method right now. But we've also been eating a lot of fermented food. And so I've been trying to do some of my own. My sauerkraut, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to this year. It's still fine. But I've been actually adding, just from plain sauerkraut, adding a little oregano and crushed red pepper to make it into basically a curdito instead of just a regular sauerkraut. And it's very, very good that way. But today we're going to be dealing with a head of purple cabbage that I had. And I could have definitely dehydrated it. We have a dehydrated cabbage video happening right now. I will show more details as we get into the video. I think she calls it a deep sea kraut. And the reason for that is because there is a type of seaweed in it. So let's get to it. Fermented foods can be such a great addition to our diets, especially things that are just vegetables. I've gone through phases with kombucha, but I just don't really like it that much. And it just I don't really feel very great after having had it. And I've had lots of different kinds. And it just hasn't really been something that I have wanted to keep going. So if it's just vegetables and things like that, I love it. And I think that those things can just be a great addition to a well-rounded, healthy diet. So let's get straight to the recipe. In this recipe, it calls for dulse flakes, which is a type of seaweed, sesame seeds, cabbage, green onions, garlic, and parsley. Before we get chopping vegetables, I'm going to toss these white sesame seeds into my oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. This will lightly toast them and give them a deeper, nuttier flavor. And I'm going to set my oven to 350 degrees. This is about a half a cup. While I love using my food processor for shredding cabbage for kraut, today I decided to just slice it by hand. Only one head of cabbage, so it's pretty quick and easy food prep. You can keep bigger slices of cabbage for sure, but I prefer thinner slices that hold together well and don't really hang off a fork. Next, I'm going to slice up the green onions. The recipe actually calls for 2 bunches, but I somehow overlooked that when I was getting my shopping list put together. So I'm working with 1 bunch. I'm putting in the whole thing, the whites, the greens, and then slicing it thin because that's how we prefer it. Now we have our garlic, which I think I might actually have a little bit more than the recipe states for this one, but I'm going to go ahead and mince them up really finely. Putting them through a garlic press would be great too. I used to have one, but it broke and I just never replaced it, but they can definitely make things a little easier. For the parsley, this is about a half a cup. I'm going to mince it finely as well. I really prefer the cabbage to be the biggest pieces in this kraut and everything else to be super small and very secondary. Then I will add in the dulse flakes and some salt. I honestly wasn't sure I'd be adding the seaweed flakes because I was getting really discouraged when trying to find them. I didn't want to order online, even though the stuff I found happened to be from Mountain Rose Herbs, which was the very brand I was looking at online. So when I happened to literally stumble across it in the store the day I happened to be getting the other ingredients for this recipe, I was pretty excited. It is expensive, but we only used a fraction of the bag. So I guess now I need to figure out a good way to incorporate it into the rest of our meals so it doesn't just sit around. Maybe I could vacuum seal it to make sure that it'll stay fresh. At this point, the sesame seeds are done, so I add those and start mixing. I like to give everything a good mix and then let it sit for a while. Even a good couple hours is pretty good. When working with cabbage to make a kraut of any kind, it can be very intense to break up some of the structure of the veggies. And I just assume let it sit around for a while because then it will naturally wilt from being exposed to the salt. Then when I go at it later, it is so much easier. But you definitely want to make sure the cabbage gets a lot of the cell structures broken up, as it makes a big difference in the flavor of the final result. I think this is in part why my regular kraut didn't turn out quite as good as in the past. I got impatient with that step and didn't do it as long as I should have. This recipe has a ratio for a brine, which is 2 cups of water to 1 cup of 2 cups of water to 1 tablespoon of salt. I used a half gallon jar, and it was so full. I like to have more headspace than this at the end, like when I start the fermenting, because it expands significantly, especially daily in the first week of fermenting. It's actually something that I really try to be hands-on with and make sure I'm pushing things down and kind of rotating things to make sure nothing stays above the water line too long. But I also like to keep a small jar on the top, and there just was barely enough room. So I did end up transferring it to a 1 gallon jar and made quite a bit more brine. I think another quart worth of brine. Because it is autumn, the process to ferment will take a few weeks, but if it's warmer, it can be less than 2. I don't get too crazy with fermentation experiments that often, but I like this one a lot, and I'm looking forward to having it as long as it will last. More kitchen projects and definitely more dehydrating coming up. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.